asked for. So this card that has no basis, you know, it should not be the, you know, legal to have it, you know, to use it for any reason. So for the question why the commissioners have it, I don't have a clue. Doesn't make any sense. The only thing that I've heard is when they made this thing legal, the guys from Detroit out of the unions came down, and that's when the discussion started. You know, that's when they decided to bring it in, and as you say, it could very well have been for the money. You know, but that is, you know, it should be gone. There's no other way around it. It should go for the vote, take it away, and it's over.
Linda?
The matricula consular card, just for your information, is accepted by banks for purposes of opening accounts, which I think is kind of interesting. In terms of whether or not the county ought to be accepting that as legal identification, I think I would want to consult with law enforcement about their position on that before making a decision. Certainly the discussion should be reopened, but according to the research I did, the FBI feels that the matricula consular card is not, it's not very reliable, and it is subject to a lot of graft and misuse, and so obviously it's something we would reopen in discussions with law enforcement for the county. Thank you.
John? Thank you. Allow me to just kind of present, this is a article in the Ola Journal. I'd like to quote Commissioner Awfuldish, if I may. "We thought this was a good idea. It's a step in the right direction," said Commissioner Bob Awfuldish. "It doesn't mandate the use of the card, but we thought it was a positive tool that others, such as banks and the Sheriff's Department, can go along with also." He went on further to say, oh, you're going to love this. "When it was explained to us, it seems like all the wrinkles had been ironed out regarding any possibility for forgery," Awfuldish said. "And we agree that there were enough positive points for the person who carries it." Positive points for the person who carries it. Now, this was back in 2005. The commissioners ignored some information and congressional testimony by this, it's kind of an obscure government agency. It's called the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Even a casual observer can see there are problems with this. And regrettably, our commissioners either have too much pride or flat out ignorance to listen. The public, John Music, for example, has been bringing this up for a very long time, and they refuse to go back to revisit this resolution and make it go away. Elected officials make mistakes. I know that might be a revelation to some of you, but the reality is people make mistakes, even elected officials, and you gotta fix them. When somebody points out to you that something's seriously wrong, especially in these difficult times, you suck it up and you fix it. Our commissioners do not do that. When they have the obvious pointed out to them, well, that was then, different circumstances, or you're misinterpreting. They always have canned answers, but never canned solutions. Common sense is a canned solution, what a reasonable person would do. And that's one of the things I advocate. Take a look at a situation and ask yourself, what would a reasonable person do? It's that simple. Thank you.
Now, it has been suggested that we vary the order of the candidates in answering the questions, so I'm going to rotate down, and Dick, you'll be the first one to answer the next one, then Linda, and then John. We'll start, and we'll roll around that way. Regionalism is something of a hot topic. Under the Democrats and the former governor, there was a proposal to have a new kind of a bureaucracy for northeastern Ohio, where there would be some kind of an official appointed by the governor who would consolidate tax districts and do all kinds of things and determine revenue expenditures and who knows what. That's the kind of regionalism that I'm asking about. There's another kind of regionalism where a couple, fire departments get together and agree to share one piece of equipment. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at supplanting county commissioners and that kind of thing in running local government. And I would ask Dick your reaction to it and the other candidates as well.
Local, it's all about local people. We don't need them telling us what to do. You know, it's, when he's talking about, you know, the local stuff that we call it localism. It's taking one fire district, helping another fire district. We don't need Big Brother telling us, you know, how to spend our money. It's the local people who should have the say. You know, and it's pretty simple. Leave them out of it. You know, let everybody local in your village, in your town. We've created a JED in Perry. We all work together. So it's communication between us and cooperation between local people. When it gets into anything larger than that, I think it should stay away. It's bad for all of us.
Linda?
There's a lot of pressure from higher levels of government on local governments to look at innovative solutions to governing. On Tuesday, I'm going to be attending a meeting where they're discussing that because the state government, as part of the new budget, is funding something called an innovation fund to encourage local governments to figure out ways to collaborate. I'm going. I want to see what they have to say. The concern is always, how do we maintain the control of our local governance? And that's why you have to keep an eye on them and go to those meetings. If you go to my campaign website, you will see a link to an organization called NEOSCC. And that's an organization that's funded by a $4.5 million federal grant and money from private foundations like the Cleveland Foundation. And they're looking at I want to say it's a 17-county area, and they want to look at regionalizing things like land planning and governance and transportation and air and water, which you already have with NOECA. I need to go to those meetings. You need to watch them. You need to look at their website. You need to see what they're doing, particularly land planning, because I've been the zoning trustee for 10 years, and zoning is where we tell you what you can do and can't do with your personal property. And actually, quickly, we were looking at creating a piece of zoning for people to have wind towers on their own property. And we were trying to come up with the rules for that so that if it falls down, it doesn't fall on your neighbor's property. And our zoning inspector said, well, look, there's nothing in here about how close you can put it to the house. And I said, so? And he's like, well, shouldn't we be protecting them from themselves? That's what he said. And I said, no, we should let them be grown-ups and decide for themselves how much risk they want to undertake in having a wind tower on their own property.
Yeah.
You have to really watch things like land planning. And anybody with an urban planning degree knows that. Because if you start getting that up into higher levels, then you're really going to have what Dick was talking about, somebody really coming from a lot higher than you and telling you what you're going to do and what your land is going to be used for. So I encourage you to stay on top of what's happening, and I'm going to be doing that too by attending the meeting on Tuesday.
Okay. John?
Thank you, sir. Well, regionalism, as this model has been brought forward, I'll just be one word, bad. It's that simple. What they're talking about is establishing a czar. We keep hearing that term brought up over and over. This is exactly how it would apply to this model. Let's get right down to it. Whatever happened to government, you know, of the people, for the people, by the people? The reality is this is taking away what is rightfully ours and redistributing it. Again, class warfare, redistribution of wealth. This is taking control of that which is ours. People choose to live where they live in many cases. And this is basically being denied that. If you want to carve this great state of ours up into 4 quadrants and divvy things up, can't guess but how Gates Mills and East Cleveland would be getting along on that issue. So the bottom line is, what they're talking about doing is constitutionally and statutorily illegal. But it doesn't mean that people aren't talking about it. So they're basically desensitizing us. Talk about something that's absolutely absurd, and then you can sneak something else through on the backside that isn't quite as radical, but it's that insidious ingress that we always have to deal with. What are they going to sneak through? Get your attention over here, and then slide something through and you're not looking, because it doesn't sound quite as disgusting or as outrageous as what they talked about over there. Thank you, folks.
Dave?
Thank you. I've been a strong advocate of our constitutional rights of liberty, freedom, and the right to be able to choose what your private property is, what your rights are on your private property. I think that, well, for example, Lauren, when your husband Lou had a problem, he called his local councilman, and with a few phone calls and that, you had a solution to the problem. I think that the best